Hello, everyone. I am Brittany, and I am going to be sharing today all about connecting with your baby. So I'm just going to make sure we've got some friends all in here. I'm going to see how many people are logged in, and then we'll get started. If you have your little one with you and you'd like to follow along with some of the play-based activities, feel free. Otherwise, you can just kind of watch along, and I will do a Q&A at the end so that you can ask me specific questions if you have any. All right. We've still got some people trickling in. All right. I think we'll go ahead and get started. It's 12:05. So I'm Brittany Zis, Doctor of Physical Therapy, and owner of Mother and Baby Wellness Collective. You can follow us on Instagram at Mother Baby Wellness Collective. I like to share a lot of tips and tricks for connecting with your little one, ways to support their development through connection, and establishing really great floor time play from the get-go, from when they're newborns, because as we'll talk a little bit about today, development really starts from day one, and we want to be really intentional about the activities and the positions we have our babies in, because where they start, we build foundations, and so that what they're doing today will help the skills to come in the future for them. So today we're going to give you some tips and tricks on ways to connect with your baby. I will answer questions for you. You can follow our Instagram, like I mentioned, to see some tips and tricks that we share there. We are based in Atlanta, but we do in-home visits here, in-person visits here in our office. And we do classes here for building community and connection. But we also do virtual sessions, so virtual wellness sessions for families all around the world. If you have questions and just want to, feel a little bit more, confident with how you're playing with your baby. So we'll talk about some roadblocks, and we will talk about any other questions you have related to development. So I think we're going to go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, we will do the little Q&A at the end. I do see something in the chat box here, so I'm just going to make sure I can see. Okay, perfect. All righty. Well, we're going to get started. So when it comes to infant development, something that is so important is really connection. So a lot of times I have families that I work with who have questions or concerns. Big ones that we'll see are, my baby hates tummy time, or I'm not sure what tummy time is supposed to look like for my newborn versus my 5-month-old, right? Or my 7-month-old even. So we want to make sure that we're feeling confident, but we want to always start that floor time with connection. So there's tummy time is a big, one that we hear about a lot, right? We know that tummy time is important for our little one's development, but there's other positions that are really important too. So we're going to talk today about playing with your baby on their back, on their sides, so what we call a sideline position, as well as on their tummy for some tummy time. And we're going to talk about what that looks like and what type of ways you can play with them in each position, okay? So personally, I love to start floor time and play time with a baby on their back, whether that's on the floor directly. I love a little, a mat on the floor for them to be comfortable. I also really love taking little ones, especially little ones that maybe have reflux and really don't love to be flat on the floor. Sometimes we might start here with that back play. So they're on their back, but they're in your lap here. I also really love a wedge. This is the tum-tum wedge. That is a nice position for little ones who struggle maybe with reflux and being flat. So, but basically I love to have little ones on their back first, where I can make eye contact with them. So one thing we'll talk about today is the importance of eye contact and just using the eyes when we talk about different developmental positions. So I always love to start with that. The eyes can be really calming for our babies. They like to know you're there. They like eye contact, helps them to feel centered and grounded. So before putting them right onto their tummy, I like to really make sure we're doing that eye contact and letting them know that playtime is about to happen. So With my little ones, I like to start on the back, and we'll do lots of play at midline. So for little ones who maybe have a head turning preference, that's something that we'll see commonly after birth, our babies that are a little bit tight from the position in the womb. So they might have a preference to turn their head to either the left or the right a little bit more, or they might have a little bit of a tilt. So like I say, like the little banana shape, when you put them down, you see that little hip hike and the head tilt. So we want to be really mindful about guiding little ones to what we call midline, a nice neutral head, so ears at the same level and head turned where their chin is over their sternum. So that's midline. For little ones before 3 months, they can't hold midline themselves, so we can guide them there. So my floor time might look like putting a baby on their back here and just holding their little head and bringing their little shoulders and hands towards midline and guiding there. And we'll make eye contact. And that's going to be a great way to just start and let them know, hey, I'm here. I'm going to talk to you. We're just going to spend a minute or two right here at midline, just letting your baby feel what midline feels like. And again, connecting with you. Floor time is so much about connection as well. So for my little ones, I might start even massaging their hands, going from their palms to their fingertips. So for my little ones that do have tension after birth, they stay fisted a lot. So being tight is a little, and fisted is common in newborns, but we don't want them to always have those hands super tight and fisted. So we might do some gentle massage, moving from the palms to the fingertips with a moderate pressure. And that might be where we start. We might start with talking here, making eye contact, massaging the palms, going to the other hand, and then we might go to their feet and do the same, heels towards the toes, really bringing awareness. I always tell families I work with, babies don't really know their hands and feet are theirs. So when we bring that sensory input to their hands and their feet, they start to understand their body more, and you might even see your little one starting to wiggle more. So I'm a big fan of free hands and free feet. Like take the socks off and the mittens off and let them really feel what it feels like to feel your hands and their skin being touched, as well as toys and surface. So we might start our playtime with just being here, just some gentle rocking, and we might start massaging, and then we might do some tapping their little hands out to the sides, to the floor, and then maybe hugging in and doing a little gentle rocking and doing a few reps like that, where we're starting to open up the chest and we're starting to relax those shoulders, especially for my little ones right after birth that are tight. And if they have an asymmetry, that's something we want to really start to move those shoulders. So we might still be talking and singing and playing and doing some nice little arm range of motion. And then maybe doing one hand up and down on both sides. So this is all just pre-tummy time. And then we'll do the same thing with our feet. We'll tap those feet together, bring awareness to midline. I like to call them juicy hip circles, where we move those hips around, move those legs around. This is great for gas. So my little gassy babies or my babies with reflux that arch and tense a lot really benefit from a nice little hip circles that really, really round and relax that low back. So that's going to be really great. Then I love to do some what I call opposite hand to foot. So I'll take that one hand and the opposite foot and jiggle them out. And then I'll bring them to tap and touch their foot for a moment. Bring that body awareness in for them again. And then we'll do that several times on each side. And this is all going to just help your baby prep for activity, help loosen up any tension, and help get them ready for movement. Our babies need to feel movement in order to initiate movement. So we want them to experience all of this movement of their joints and their body. Then next thing I love to do is take them and do what I call a little happy baby roll. So we're going to bring hands to feet, just like this, or hands to knees, you know, and for some babies, especially my new little ones that just have some of that birth tightness, maybe they can't reach their feet yet, but you're just going to gather their little arms and legs together. And we're going to do what I call happy baby rolls, side to side, nice and slowly. One thing that I always urge parents to do is move slowly and be patient with your baby. You know, if they're a little tight, maybe their head gets stuck looking, you know, maybe they're on their back and their head stays this way. You know, you want to then bring in a nice high contrast card and get those eyes, which we talked about before, get those eyes to help them initiate turning their head. So we're going to talk a lot about contrast and the eyes in a moment. But movement like this really, you know, is great for, again, relaxing that low back tightness. It brings everything to midline. It's a great way to let your baby feel movement. So again, our babies need to feel movement in order to initiate movement. So we need that, what we call vestibular input. So rolling is a great way to help them start to have more body awareness. So we'll do some rolling side to side. And this is all these foundations before tummy time or just for floor time. Then what I love to do is bring in that head and eye movement, right? So we want to take our little ones and have a high contrast card, especially in the first few months. You want to have some high contrast for them to look at. For my little ones that are a little bit older, maybe, you know, 2 and 3 months and up, a mirror is a great toy to have. I actually get these little suction spinners and add them to my mirrors because it's a fun little something for the babies to keep them entertained. Some babies like sound and lights. I don't tend to love toys that are very stimulating. I like to keep it sort of low stim for the babies. But this is a nice one that has a gentle, I'll turn it on so you can hear it. Pretty low stim, but music, and it does light up. It's hard to see in the screen right now, but we'll use something essentially that catches their eye and starts to get them to turn their head. So I might prime that movement before we do side lying and tummy time by having a little one on their back, maybe placing my hand on the chest, especially for my little ones that do have a tightness, just to kind of make sure they can really isolate that head and neck movement. So a gentle hand on the chest, and then give them that contrast card for them to look at. And then we might do some slow moving to the right and pause, and back to midline, and then to the left and pause. One thing about it is the younger your baby is, the slower you are going to have to move with this because they're still learning how to control their eye muscles. So fixation and tracking aren't super smooth for them. So we want to make sure to give them time and allow them to catch up and really fixate on the card and then start to really tell those eyes and that head where to go. So, you know, don't move too fast. Make sure that you really watch their eyes. If your little one has a tightness where they turn their head to one side more than the other, it might be challenging for them to come to that other side that they don't spend a lot of time on. So, you know, being patient and really letting them focus first and seeing if you can slowly get them to come a little bit farther towards that, what we call non-preferred side, and going back and forth there. This is really great because eventually where the eyes go, the head and body go. So their eyes are going to be so important for tummy time, for rolling, for sitting, for crawling, and all of the other skills to come. So you want to always bring and involve the eyes in playtime. Then we'll go ahead and roll to one side. So we want our little ones to get side lying. This is really great because side lying helps to develop balance between the muscles on the front and the back of the body. So when our babies are on a in a side lying position, they're learning not to arch back and overuse those back muscles. They're learning to really balance those muscles. And that becomes really helpful later on for when they're getting ready to learn how to roll from their back to their tummy or from their tummy to their back. It also is very important for sitting. So when our little ones are learning how to sit, they have to learn how to work these two muscle groups together. So they need to learn how to, what we call co-contract the muscles on the front and the back of the body. So they have to know how to do that and not have one muscle group overpowering the other. So we have to go ahead and make sure that they're practicing that sideline so that they're learning without too much gravity. So without it being too challenging, they're learning how to connect those two muscle groups. It's also really great for getting a different position and different pressure on their head, right? So our babies in our generation of parenting, we get a lot of pressure on the back of the head and we have a higher rate of babies with flat spots. So we do want to make sure that we are turning their heads. A lot of that has to do also with the Back to Sleep campaign, which is really essential for safe sleep. But we also need to, remember to get our babies in different positions during wake windows so that they can get, a variety of pressure so that we don't have pressure and too much time on one spot. So we want to have our little ones, on one side, getting pressure off the back of their head and on one side. And then we want to make sure that we roll them to the other side and get the same pressure on the other side. So one thing about side lying is you want to make sure that your visual cue isn't too high up where our babies will then arch backwards. So they'll look, arch backwards to see. We want to get that visual cue right at about chest height so that they have a nice neutral spine. So they're nice and neutral and they're not arching back when they're doing it. For little ones that have a tightness and a head turning preference, the side that they prefer to turn towards will likely be easier for them. So that will be a side to start on, and then work into, making sure you're doing all of the mobility prep work we just talked about, loosening them up to make that other side a little bit more comfortable for them. So side lying is going to be a great place to play. Now, up until 3 months, it's going to be more of a passive kind of just being there, comforting. You can lay next to them or you can give them something fun to look at. As they approach 3 months, they're bringing their own hands to midline at that point. They might be able to hold a toy such as the O-ball, where they can actually hold it there and start to play with it there and promote that midline. So they might actually be playing and starting to rock here. They might even learn how to accidentally roll back to their back, which is great practice for them. A lot of times our little ones learn new skills by accidentally doing them. So we want to allow them those opportunities. So sideline play becomes more reaching involved at that point. When they are on their backs, going into reaching, at 2 months, we want to start making sure that our little ones can bat at some dangly toys and they're moving those arms, even if it doesn't look very controlled. And then at 3 months, we want to start really encouraging some nice reaching over the chest, as well as out to the side with that head turn to work on hand-eye coordination. So putting those toys out to the side. I love, again, having, a mirror or a spinny toy that they can play with. A lot of babies also love crinkle paper, something sensory-wise that they can engage with to keep them looking and reaching, and then reaching over their head and chest to reach for toys to work those muscles as well. So 2 to 4 months, we want to start seeing the progression of reaching when they're on their back as well as on their side. And then we go to tummy time. So we've done some back play, some sideline play. When we go into tummy time, I always encourage rolling your baby slowly into tummy time and then rolling them back out. What you want to do is be mindful to go both ways. Make sure that we're what we call presenting symmetry to our babies and promoting that. So if your baby's on your back, you're gonna, again, connect with them, make eye contact, let them know. I might say, okay, we're gonna go to our tummy, and we might start to roll them over slowly so they can sort of, feel where they're going, understand what's happening. And then I might have, my visual card help them get there. For my young ones, 1 and 2 months old, they're going to need a lot of help. I'm going to give them a lot of support to get to their tummy. For my older babies, 3 months and up, we might start to do a cross, one leg over, and see if they can help and give a little less help up at those shoulders. We might kind of just help them here at their hips and see if they can get to those forearms and start to play. Now, one thing about tummy time is, when we see a baby that is, younger than 3 months and they're lifting really high and really strong, that can be a sign of tension, which is very common in babies after birth. So we want babies to be strong, but we want them to have balance. So if I see a little one that's really lifting, I want to kind of figure out, okay, where's that tension? What's going on there? And I want to make sure that I'm allowing them and encouraging them actually not to lift too high. So tummy time, we don't want our babies to be lifting so high that they're arching that back or lifting those hips, or that chin is pointing upward, right? We want that chin to be parallel to the floor at around 3 months and weight bearing on their forearms. before 3 months, you know, our 1 and 2 month olds, that tummy time is going to look like a little, you know, a lift, and they might bob their head and turn and then rest it to the other side. And a lift and a bob and a turn and rest it to the other side. So it's not going to be this super strong lift, but they're building those foundations. So we want to make sure those arms are not totally tucked under their forearms. We don't want to have our babies, you know, they're under their chest. We don't want them so tucked and then lifting super high. We want for our newborns that forearm to be, you know, out to the side. And then as they lift up, they'll be able to bring those forearms in themselves as they get stronger, and they'll be able to lift more. So for a 3 month old, our tummy time will be nice and presenting on forearms, able to hold that head to the center at midline and be right here looking at that toy or that card. Our 4 month olds might still be on their forearms, but they might actually be reaching for that toy. So I might even put, say, something that they can push and rock and have a little feedback from, and they might work on their weight shifting there. This is when those water mats can come into play and be really fun for your little one to work on shifting their weight so that their tummy time becomes, you know, this preparing for rolling, right? So as they learn to shift their weight and reach for the toys, they're going to learn how to prepare to be able to roll over. And that's what we want. We want them to be able to do that. And then at 5 months, our tummy time, we want to start seeing them push up onto hands a little bit. So starting to do what we call that press up, where they're pressing on those hands and lifting a little bit higher. And then at 6 months, we can actually press and reach. And all of that's going to help them with preparing for rolling. That should happen sometime between 4 and 6 months, from their back to their tummy and their tummy to their back. So we want to be watching for that. So we kind of talked through that tummy time progression. For our rolling, we want to think, going back to our back, that back progression, you know, at 4 months, our babies will be reaching for their knees, tapping their knees. 5 months, they might be grabbing their feet on their own. So they might be reaching those feet and maybe rocking side to side because they've now lifted that pelvis enough and engaged those deep abdominals enough to be able to do that. And then at 6 months, they might even be bringing their feet to their mouth, which is awesome because what that's doing is it's creating deep abdominal activation for them to roll. It's also stretching their little hamstrings in preparation for being able to be an independent sitter, which we also will start to do somewhere around, you know, independently between 6 and 7 months. But we can start to work on assisted sitting around 4.5, 5 months with our babies. My one piece of, you know, advice with that though, is to make sure that your baby is still getting adequate time on their tummies, sides, and back as well. Because especially for my little ones that have a history of tension, sometimes when they become vertical, they're like, this is amazing, but then they don't want to go back to the vertical positions and they might skip rolling, which is really essential for prepping for crawling. We need to have the diagonal movements and the weight shifting for our crawling success too. So we want to make sure that we're doing a little bit of assisted sitting work, but also still doing tummy, sides, and back and promoting lots of rolling. When we are doing some assisted sitting, you know, babies should first do what we call a prop sit, where their little hands are kind of forward and they're able to kind of, they're not able to sit up fully by themselves. But just like tummy time and, you know, play on our backs with those eyes, we want to bring that visual cue up. We want to make sure that they have something that they can look at here to be able to want to lift that head, because where the eyes go, the head and body go. So we want them to lift that head because eventually that's going to activate those muscles so they can start to come more upright. And if they've been doing all of their other foundational floor work, they'll have that balance to be able to sit nice and tall and eventually be grabbing the toys and sitting here and working on their balance. Around 5 months, getting better with that, and around 6 months, really being upright, maybe grabbing toys and balancing a little bit better. So we want to work on that as well. And that's going to be really helpful for prepping for eating foods. So in order to start taking in foods like purees or if you're doing baby-led weanings, taking in some solids, we do want our little ones to have some sitting control. They don't have to be independent sitters, but we do want them to be able to sit with assistance for a little while and be able to really sit nice and tall so that when they are doing their eating, they can focus on feeding and swallowing and that hand-eye coordination instead of just focusing on trying to keep themselves upright. So that can be a little bit tricky for little ones that haven't built those foundations. So we want to work on that as well. Then when it comes to rolling, I really love engaging in that from day one as a part of your play routine. So like I mentioned earlier, you start just by rolling them into and out of tummy time and rolling out. But then, as they get a little bit older, you can make it very playful. I might do some consecutive rolls with a baby when I'm playing with them. I might say, okay, we're going to go to your tummy and we're going to roll you over and we're going to stay there. And then I'm going to roll you out and we're going to do that to the left and the right, maybe 5 or 6 times. Or we might even go consecutive and do 5 or 6 rolls to one side, towards the right and left to get that vestibular input, and then repeat it going back to the right so that they can really get that body awareness and start helping with activating those muscles on the front and the back of the body. So rolling is a fun one that I love engaging with, whether you're doing that happy baby rolling or rolling all the way to and from tummies from day one. Then when you're on your tummy, you want to really think about engaging your baby's eyes. So you want that playtime to be, let me grab another card. You want that playtime to be looking at midline, looking to the right to track right and left, just like we did on our backs. We want to track right and left and upward and work on all of that visual tracking to help them progress with lifting higher through that 6-month progression to pushing up on hands. So you always want to have those, be mindful of where your toys are when you're playing with your baby, because where the toys are will dictate where their head and eyes go. Let me check our time here. Perfect. So for my little ones, some common challenges that we run into, and I work a lot with little ones in the first year. That's primarily the population that I work with most of my babies being in the first 6 months. So one thing that I will say is it's really common to see asymmetry. So that's going to be your little one having a preference to turn their head one side more than the other, or a little tilt that you might notice. We also see a lot of babies that have reflux or GI sensitivities, and that can really impact their comfort. So that can affect their sleeping, their eating, their comfort with floor time. So those are common, and I see them a lot, and I can see them really influencing a baby's progression with their floor time skills. So I always encourage parents to, watch their babies from day one and notice, okay, does my baby always have their head turned to the right more than the left? Or when I work on that visual tracking, does my baby come really easily to one side, but struggles to come, to the other side? Or do they not get the same amount of turning to the other side as they do to the side that they hang out on a lot? So it can be really obvious or really subtle. But when you're getting down and doing all of this playful connection that we've been talking about, you start to notice commonalities with your baby. You start to notice, oh, wow, we are a little bit tighter on that one side, because I'm playing with you every day and noticing you really struggle to come full range of motion to the right or to the left. So I also really encourage parents to look at your camera roll. A lot of times we can see it pretty often because we take a lot of photos of our babies, and we'll see in a lot of photos if they have an asymmetry, you'll notice, oh wow, we're always kind of gazing over to that one side in our photos. And that's a telltale sign that there's a little bit of tightness in one side of the body. So usually how that works is the side that they're tilting towards. So if my baby is tilted, this is my left, tilted to the left, they'll turn to the right more. So that even though they might look like they're turning to the right more, a lot of times people will think that's the tight side. It's usually the opposite. It's usually the tilt side is where they're the tightest. So that's where you might see it's a little bit harder to come out of that tilt and turn to the left. Or we look at the whole body. So you might notice that when you're doing that range of motion of their shoulders, their arms, you might notice that, oh, wow, I can really bring that right arm up overhead, but that left arm gets stuck here. It feels a little tight. Or maybe your baby's like, you can lift that arm up, but this one, oh, that one stays really tight. Or maybe it's a little harder to clean under that armpit or in that side of their neck. Those are all little subtle signs that we've got some tension and what we call asymmetry. And it's really, really common. So we do want to watch for that, because that asymmetry is really easy to correct when they're younger, but it gets a little bit trickier. It's possible, of course, but it's a little bit trickier and takes a little bit longer the older that they get. So we want to watch for that and just always be promoting symmetry when we're playing, turning right and left, using right and left hands, using right and left legs, rolling to the right and the left, both sides, laying on both sides. All of that symmetry is super important. And can really help with making sure your baby is developing with that symmetry. The only thing that I will say is sometimes if that is present, it's, sometimes it's enough to just do this stuff at home on your own, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes the babies really need a little bit of therapy just to kind of get some manual therapy to release any tightness and re-educate their posture. So don't feel bad if your baby does need that, or if you're doing these things and you're like, oh, we're still so tight on that one side. It's not uncommon for them to need a little bit of help. We also want to look at our head shape too. So these are all things that I love empowering parents, that as you're connecting with your baby, it gives you this opportunity to really look at the symmetry in their body, including their head shape as well. So if babies have a head turning preference, it is not uncommon for them to also be at risk for a flat spot in that area, because they're going to be tighter and be, pushing pressure on that side a lot more than the other side. So I commonly tell parents, from the get-go, once a week after bath time, go ahead and get your baby in this position and go to a mirror, or have a partner or a family member or friend look from the top down and see if you can see a nice round head, or if you see a little flatness on one side. Especially if you see a head turning preference, you're going to want to check that. If your baby has a lot of hair, you can go ahead and slick it back after bath time. But that's great. And then also looking at them from a little profile view, making sure we're seeing a nice round curve back here as well. Before 6 months, there's a lot of opportunity for us to reshape any flat spots just conservatively with therapy. So that's something that isn't commonly known, that we don't have to go right to a helmet if we see a flat spot, especially if they're on the younger side. So if you see it, notice it, I would go ahead and get a referral to a PT who knows, how to work with that, because you can really make some great changes and avoid a helmet potentially. Let me check if we have any. Okay. Oh, yes. I will get to the questions in just a moment, and I'll make sure to answer these. These are great questions. Yeah, so I will, I think that's about it. I'll go ahead and open up to questions now, actually, if that's good. And then if I see any questions that pertain to anything else we can add here, we'll obviously go ahead and demonstrate. But I'll go ahead and open it up, because I think there'll be a lot of questions so far. But ask away, and I am here to answer. I'm going to go ahead, and if you would like to ask, unmute yourself, you certainly can. But I'll start here with JC's question, which is, what was the wedge brand you shared? Yes, so I'm going to share, this is called the Tum Tum Wedge. So, and if you follow me on Instagram, I have a link in my link tree. I have a discount code too for you if you wanted to use it. These are great. You don't have to have one of these, but they are nice, especially for my little ones that do struggle with floor time. The wedge is nice. I love this for my babies with reflux, because sometimes they really do struggle to go flat right after a feed. I will say, when it comes to reflux though, I like them to not be just put upright and held upright for 30 minutes after feed, like is commonly recommended. I actually recommend going to their tummy and doing a nice relaxed tummy time. So sucking on a passy or your finger would be awesome, because that will stimulate digestion, as well as being in this belly down position stimulates digestion too. But sometimes being flat might not work out. So on your chest would be great, or on a wedge like this. but I digress. The wedges are great though, because what they also do, so for babies that can't be flat or aren't comfortable flat, they're great for the back play here. Also great for tummy time though, because what happens is this will take a little bit of that gravity away. So for my little ones that are really struggling to be completely flat with that lifting their head, this puts them on a little bit of an angle, and that will allow them to have less gravity to fight to lift their head. So I love the Tum Tum wedge, but you can try a boppy pillow. That's a common one. Depends on, you know, your comfort with getting them in that position, but sometimes you can get a really nice position with a pillow like that. You can also use your legs. So I will sometimes, you know, put my legs up like this and put them on an angle, or I might put them here on an angle as well. And then also on an exercise ball even, and put them on the ball and just have them there. I can bring that over if anyone wants a demo of that too. But this is the Tum Tum wedge, and it's really great. The other part of that question was, let's see, my son prefers to look to his right side. Does that mean his right side is tight? Great question. So yeah, so usually it's not 100% of the time, but usually if they prefer to look to one side, it's the opposite side that's tight. So usually they'll have a little tightness on that other side. And I call this muscle kind of the stargazing muscle. So when they're tight on that side, it turns. So they kind of have this cute little stargazing look. And for some babies, that's really obvious. Others, not so obvious. It can be subtle. But we'll also, that's why when in our practice, we always look head to toe. We don't just look at the neck. We'll look and see, okay, is that opposite side arm tight, or the hip tight, or is the hip hiked? We'll look through their whole posture. But typically if they turn to the right, the left side is often the tight side. That's where I'll look first for tightness. Says my son is 2 months old, and when he does tummy time, does go really high up with his neck. I thought he was crushing it. What can I do to help avoid him? Yeah, so what you can do, it's a great question, is first and foremost, watch where your visual cue is. So for my little ones that are already lifting really, really high, I will make sure to bring that visual cue. So if they're really like pushing up and lifting, that's often kind of what they look like, they're really high. I'll bring that visual cue actually down a little bit to see if I can get them to calm those muscles. I'll also make sure that their arm position is good, that they're not just super tucked where they can lift and arch that back, but that their arms are at 2 months, their elbows are a little bit behind their shoulders actually, but out to the side and weight bearing on forearms. And I will also put them on an incline. So I will say I'm a huge fan of modifications because I'm so much more about the quality over quantity. So for a baby they're really showing those compensations when they're in a flat position, then I'll put them on an angle and see if that improves. Sometimes that really helps because they're not using those compensations to lift. So I would try that as well, putting them on an incline and seeing if that calms down some of that overuse of the back muscles. Let's see. How do you check his profile view and when he's lying down to check flat spots? Yeah, so what you would do is I like to hold them like this and then go over, if I'm by myself, I'll go to a mirror and look top down, bird's eye view, or I'll have another person look, or I'll have the other person hold them and I will look. But we'll look here and just look from the top down. You want to be able to see the tip of their nose. That's kind of your reference, your North Star to where midline is. You don't want to see too much of it because then you're not going to see the top of the head, and you don't want to see none of it because again, you want to see that direct bird's eye view. So you want to get that little tip of the nose view. And then you can also look at their profile view. So you can hold them upright, and just kind of look from the side and see if it's flat. Usually if a baby has a flatness straight across the back of their head, these are the babies that love to be flat on their back and love the archways, but don't really turn. They kind of have no neck and they won't turn very often either way. And they tend to just love being on their back. So for that baby, like lots of side lying is the key, and we want to do less of the back play and make back play very, very intentional. But we want to look and see if they have a flat back profile. And they also, if they do have that, they might even have a little more of an angle front to back. So you'll kind of look for that flatness instead of a rounded back of the head. Leah T, we have a newborn that's raising his head really high and sustains it for quite a while. What can we do if this is tension? Yeah. So first thing, I would try some of these modifications. I would try to do on an incline for a newborn. Doing it on your chest is great. Hands, again, those arms out kind of here, so that when they're doing their tummy time, it's more of a press up. So tummy time is a lift, and while it is extension, it needs to be abdominal activation and chest activation as well. So I call tummy time kind of a pec press up. So you want to have those arms in a way that they can do that. But for a newborn, I would go right on your chest on an incline. You can be lying down, you can be reclined in the couch like this, and just have those little arms there and just see if they can lift and turn and try to get them to relax that head too, and do some sucking to calm that nervous system a little bit. And try some of these other modifications I was just mentioning. But ultimately, if you feel you have tension that's not resolving, I would go ahead and see if you can get connected with a PT who's keen on working with the new little infants, so that they can work on some of that tension. How long during the day should you be doing tummy time and side lying, and how often? So I actually don't typically prescribe a certain amount of time. And here's why, because I definitely, it can vary baby to baby. And I don't like to stress parents out thinking like going to Google, seeing like you have to do 60 minutes of tummy time a day. That can feel really stressful, especially for a baby that's struggling. So, and especially in the early days when wake windows are really short, it can feel really overwhelming. So I typically try to say with each wake window, try to do a little floor time, rotisserie, do the different positions when you can, and try to just be really mindful about their position. If you can get a few minutes of floor time, at least with every wake window, as their wake windows stretch, you should be able to get a little bit more time. So I don't necessarily give an amount of time, but try to be mindful each wake window. Personally, I find that a little bit, but sprinkled frequently, is a lot more effective in what we call neuromuscular education and re-education and postural education. A lot more effective than doing it like once in the morning and then like having the baby in containers all day. That's something we don't want to do. We want to kind of keep time in containers super limited, and containers would be bouncers, swings, car seats. Use them, of course, like for safe transport, but when you're not transporting in the car, like get them out of that. Getting them out of devices and giving our babies ample time to just be flat is great, or baby wearing is wonderful, but we want to like just be able to let them stretch out. So thinking every wake window, think, okay, are we content? Are we fed? This is a great time to put you down and get some play time, even if it's a few minutes. And tummy time might look different from baby to baby. Some of my babies that I work with don't tolerate it very well. So their tummy time and floor time might look like short, frequent bouts, whereas some of my babies that tolerate it a little bit better might be doing, a longer bout and still frequently, but maybe not as many reps as, say, a baby that needs more frequency, but less time in the position. So just kind of take away like every wake window when you can, doing the best you can to choose the floor for playtime. If you're out and about for a day, don't get too stressed about, if they didn't get enough floor time, but the next day, if you're home more, like really try to keep them out of devices and just get that variety of floor time. I hope that's helpful. Next question is, my son is 5 months old and is still struggling with doing tummy time for very long. Any tips? And my son learned to roll tummy to back, so it hasn't really helped with tummy time. Yeah, because he ends up rolling himself onto his back. Yes. So for my 5-month-olds, still struggling at that point, I want to really engage, obviously with toys. At that point, they're a lot more engaged with toys. So find what he loves to use. At that point, they might like the toys that have feedback like this. Teethers are great once your baby is bringing their hands to mouth. So 3 months old and up, I'm a huge fan of getting their tongue involved. That's going to improve body awareness. It's going to loosen up tension if they have it. It's going to promote hand-eye coordination. So if you follow me on Instagram, you can find all my recs there in my link tree, my Amazon shop, as well as just like brands that I like are linked there, because I love, things that encourage a lot of oral motor play, but toys that are going to be grasping toys for the 5-month-old, for tummy time to encourage reaching. Also for 5-month-olds, we want to start doing planks if we're struggling. So that's going to be getting them, because we want that tight 5-month-old to start getting ready to push on those arms. So I might get them on the wedge and do a little plank over the wedge if you have one, or a boppy pillow, having their hands, this baby is small for this, but having hands on the floor and doing a little plank here, or I might do it on my lap. I might take my 5-month-olds and have my lap here, and I might kind of do some rocking where they get a little weight bearing on their hands on the floor with something really fun like this to look at, to get them to, want to look up and press up on those hands. But again, going back to that conversation of short, frequent bouts is going to be key for a baby that doesn't like tummy time. Because one thing I will say that I didn't say before yet is that I am so big on nervous system regulation. So if your baby is showing frustration and distress, where they're really getting upset with any of these positions, do not, force them through it. It's going to be stressful for them. It's going to be stressful for you. Take them out of the position. And that's kind of where I was leaning when I was saying it looks different for each baby. Some babies can tolerate more, they stay in the position longer. The babies who can't, we do short, frequent bouts and we stop before they're upset, so that we always have a calm nervous system and a positive association to help them build that foundation. So floor time for babies is never no pain, no gain. We don't go till they're crying. I'm a no cry PT. I try really hard to keep the babies and, really enjoying the positions. And I want you guys to, be able to give yourself permission with that at home too. So for your 5-month-old, if they're not loving it, just do short, frequent bouts. Try to get some planking in there to build that weight bearing on the shoulders, to develop that core strength and that tolerance there. And if you're still seeing that struggle, then I would reach out to a PT. Okay, this is, let's see, the daughter is 6 months old and is only rolling back to front. So rolling from back to front, okay. And is, if I facilitate with her hip and hold it there until she rolls the whole way, she's grabbing her feet some, but definitely not bringing them to her mouth. Is there anything I need to look for or do more of so she can become more independent with rolling? So she's rolling back to front with facilitate. So I would do a lot of, for the independent rolling, we want to do a lot of feet grabbing and a lot of vestibular input, lots of facilitated rolls, consecutive rolls, put them on the floor of your bed and do what we mentioned earlier, like roll them, make it very playful, like 5 times to the right, 5 times to the left. We want to make sure that our eyes are really involved, because again, going back to those other systems, are we not rolling because we're struggling to get our eyes and our head and body connected? So we want to do lots of visual tracking, with these rolls, moving them left and right, rolling over. For that 6-month-old, we want to make sure that our tummy time is really involving the weight shifting and that tracking, to make sure, and my 6-month-olds often really love this one, really making sure they're getting that weight shift and that arm is coming. I also really love, if they're tight, to do when they're on their tummy, these little, like bringing one knee up and then the other. My baby isn't super moldable here, but if they're on that tummy, really bringing one knee up and then the other. So you're kind of having them do these little weight shifts, knee up and shift, see how the baby shifted. Then other side, knee up and up. And so they're doing these weight shifts that will ultimately help them learn to roll. I also really love, for my 5 and 6-month-olds, I call this the 5-month position. So this is where doing that early sideline really helps. But getting them propped on their side and I call it like 5-month position, or strike a pose, where they quite literally look like they're striking a pose on their side, where they're propped on that forearm, that leg is across, and that head is lifted. This is super helpful for rolling, because if you think about it, whether they're rolling from their back to their belly, they have to get in that position, especially my older babies, they have to be able to lift that head away from that shoulder to roll both ways. So playing in this position, you can quite literally help your baby by kind of getting them propped and putting something fun for them to reach right here. And you can just help them play in this position. Really great for helping with rolling. So I would do lots of feet grabbing and showing them rolling, lots of vestibular input. on their tummy, lots of reaching, lots of weight shifting, and that 5-month position, and see if that helps them to really, really nail that rolling. What are your thoughts on using the boppy to prop baby on an incline for tummy time as opposed to the wedge? So yes, I'm okay with you using the boppy pillow. I will grab mine right here. I have something similar. You just want to watch that. This is not a boppy, but it's close to it. You want to make sure that depending on your baby's age, where their arms are. So we want to I'm gonna come see if I can get you to see here a little bit better. So what we don't want when they're on the boppy though, is that their back sway. So I'm gonna go like this just so you can see better. We don't want them to be here and have their back swaying. So you just depend. Sometimes my longer babies struggle with this because their arms are up here and their back is swaying. So you wanna just make sure that they're still getting this nice, good ability to push up. So you wanna be on those forearms. You wanna have the baby here, if they're on that boppy, and able to really lift and press down. And as they get a little older, like 5 months, you can kind of push them forward and let them do a little plank there. But yeah, the boppy, as long as the alignment looks good, I'm all for it. Just some babies struggle with getting that correct alignment, but some babies look great on the boppy. Let's see. How do you properly move them from back to belly to start tummy time? Is it lifting their arm across their head and rolling? Also, is there anything we should do with lifting their legs during diaper changes? Yeah, so for back to belly, for rolling, especially my little ones, depends on the age. So for my under 3-month-olds, I'm going to quite literally take everything and roll them. And I'm gonna have a hand that's going to support their upper body and their hips. So we're gonna roll nice and slowly to their side. And then we're gonna roll all the way over, and I'm going to help them. Like once they get here, I'm going to make sure that I help them get that arm out to the side if it gets a little stuck. And then I might give them a passy or something to rest that head here. And then we'll get once they're resting, we'll get our cue, and then we'll let them lift and turn. So just rolling nice and slowly. And then when we want to get them out, we'll make sure that arm tucks. And then we start from the hip and the shoulder here together, and we roll them out, moving nice and slowly, especially for those younger ones that don't have the head control to follow quickly with their head. Now, when they're a little older, we're going to bring that knee. So like 3 months and up, you're going to do one leg over and you can cross. Now, depends on the baby. You might need, if that arm gets stuck, especially my reflux babies that arch a lot, they're going to need some help. Probably. It's super common that arm will get stuck or that head will get stuck. So you want to make sure you watch your baby. So, and see if that arm is stuck, you're going to help guide that arm over. And you're going to basically bring that arm over here. And then some babies, you can just then go from their hips. And you want to think, okay, if this hip has to go here, we want to guide that. And then if some babies, if they're still getting stuck here, when you cross over, you might need to just kind of guide them there and really show them. And then bring those eyes, have something fun for them to want to help with that. Hope that's helpful. And then diaper changes. Yeah, you want to be mindful with the diaper changes, not to just always lift their legs. You can lift them over to the side to basically like change their diaper, and then over to the other side. So you're not just like pulling on their feet, or you can lift their little booty, but I would definitely be mindful to try to do like a side shift if you can, and move them over there. We don't want to pull too much on their little hips. Just like with our baby wearing, right? We want their hips nice and, supported in that socket. So we don't want to be tractioning down on that hip joint. It's very shallow for our little babies, especially under 7 months. So when we're baby wearing or when we're diaper changing, we just want to be mindful of our position. We always want them, or if we're wearing them, we want them in that M position, knees up, pelvis supported, knee higher than the pelvis. And when we're diaper changing, we want to just kind of tilt them over to the side. Let's see. I'm going to post right in here my social media handle. That was one of the questions. Right there. I just put that in there, Mother Baby Wellness Collective. And then Leah had a question, proper gas relief movements like bicycles. Yeah, so bicycles are a classic. We love bicycles. I really love what I call like my juicy hip circles. It's funny, in my class that I do every week, the moms are always like, you need to do a reel with all your like little isms. But one of my isms is juicy hip circles. So nice little slow hip circles that really bring those knees up. And, you know, for some babies, you might need to really capture their thighs to really massage that belly. That's great for gas relief. Also, just bringing those knees up. So I will take a baby that's super gassy and play with them with those knees relaxed and up, because that's going to relax that pelvic floor. So when they're in that elevated position, knees are, you know, out and feet are up, that's going to relax their low back, and it's going to relax their pelvic floor and get things able to just flow. So this is a great position. So I might, with my gassy babies, sometimes I'll just get them and we'll do a lot of playing here. We'll do lots of grabbing feet and lots of just here to relax those low back muscles and pelvic floor muscles. And then usually the gas starts flowing. Hip circles help as well. I love you massage can really help with constipation and gassiness. So you're gonna, you know, come through those intestines. You're gonna go up, I, then you're gonna do an L, love, across, and then you're gonna go up and around for your U. And doing that, or little keyboard, I call it, on the belly. So little keyboard motion on their tummy is really great to help with gas. Tummy time helps a lot, especially that restful tummy time. So getting your baby to really suck on the passy and just be here. I might put my music there for them to just relax here, or a card or a mirror, but just getting them to just relax on their tummy really helps with passing gas. Also holding them in like my little baby Buddha pose. So having their little knees up, that little, almost like the little squatty potty position, knees up, holding them in that baby Buddha position also is another great way. Instead of being on their back, it's similar though to kind of relax that pelvic floor. This is also a great modified tummy time position for my babies with reflux that arch a lot. Love carrying them in this position to relax that arching. But also for my babies that just need a little more support with their tummy time, I'll take them and just lean them away a little bit, let them work on lifting their head, but they're super supported against me. They often love the movement. So this is a great way to carry your baby as well. I have an almost 7-month-old, and sometimes we have him stand with support under his arms. Sometimes also takes little steps. Is that okay, or what age is appropriate? Great question. So 7-month-olds, that's the earliest that I will ever put a baby into, say, like a skip hop table. Those are a nice to have, not a need to have. If you don't have one, don't feel like you need to buy one. But if you have one of those and want to use it, occasionally treat it just like a device, like we talked about for the younger babies. But no earlier than 7 months. And I don't recommend any sort of exercisers, jumpers, doorway jumpers, bouncers like that. Babies don't learn to jump until they're about 2.5. We don't want to put too much stress on those hips. Plus, it can really limit their ability. You know, our 6 months and up, we want floor time just as much as our 6 months and under. We want tummy time, learning to crawl and pull to kneeling and side sitting and, you know, getting up to stand on their own. So if a baby is at 7 months and they're getting into standing, they're pulling up on that furniture and getting up onto their feet on their own, I'm okay with it. But if they're not, I wouldn't put them there. Sometimes our babies that love to be put in standing, often I want to know, do we have reflux? Do we have something else going on? A lot of my babies that are young and want to sit or stand often, I want to look at what's going on with their tummy. That's a common cause for that. So if we are standing though, and we're getting into standing, because a 7-month-old on the early side could be doing that, I'm okay with it as long as they're still getting lots of kneeling, hands and knees, rocking practice on the floor, again, horizontal, to work on those transitions into and out of sitting, into and out of hands and knees, pulling to knees, and all of that. But otherwise, I wouldn't, if they're just being put there, I wouldn't spend too much time there, because we want them to figure out those transitions. And we want to make sure that they're developing all of those foundational muscles to be able to get there, and to be able to do those other things, that activities that come before standing. Any other questions? Right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. Like I said, I share tips there. You can always reach out to me. I did share a discount code if you feel like you want to do a little virtual wellness session just to kind of learn play-based activities. It doesn't, replace a PT eval because technically I can't do PT evaluations outside of Georgia, but I can do, wellness education, just general play-based activities for your baby. If you want to feel a little more confident there. And I can also just help, identify if we think maybe connecting with a PT in your area to do a more specific evaluation might be beneficial. But I did share a discount code for that. Feel free to follow on Instagram, though. We try to have a really active community. But I'm really glad you guys came. And yeah, if you think of any questions, feel free to reach back out. Thanks again. Yeah, thank you so much. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Thanks so much. All your comments are so sweet. Thank you so much, everybody.